All right, so today we're going on a deep dive into, the internet has a lot of interesting corners, and today we're going to one of them.
Yeah, some might say a little
A
strange.
little strange, a little fascinating. We're looking at this list from the top tens, and it's called Top 10 Girls to Fake Nude.
Oh, wow.
Now, before anyone gets the wrong idea, we are not endorsing this list.
No, not at all.
Think of it more like, just a weird little piece of internet history or like a cultural artifact.
Right, like something that tells us about what's happening online.
Yeah, like how are trends working, what's going on with celebrity culture.
Even maybe something about ourselves, like how we think about these things.
Yeah. So
A top 10s, for those who don't know, is basically a website where people make lists and they vote on them.
pretty much anything you can imagine, I'm sure there's a list for it.
Exactly. So it's kind of like a real-time look into, what people are interested in online.
And sometimes it can be really weird.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so look at this list. It's got a pretty big variety of women on it.
Yeah, it really runs the gamut.
We're talking singers like Ariana Grande and Selena Gomez,
Right.
actresses Jennifer Lawrence, Megan Fox,
Mm-hmm.
even athletes like Maria Sharapova, and we've even got royalty on here like Kate Middleton.
Wow. So what do you think when you first see all these names together?
My first thought, honestly, is like it's not just one type of woman here.
Yeah, I see that too. It's not just like classic Hollywood beauty or anything.
Yeah, you've got that, but then there's also like the girl next door types.
Yeah,
So it seems like online, maybe the idea of beauty is a lot more complicated than we think.
that's a good point. I mean, like, look, you've got Scarlett Johansson, who is often seen as like the classic bombshell.
Yeah,
But then right next to her, you've got Emma Stone, who's known for being more quirky and charming.
exactly. So it's not just like one narrow definition of what's attractive.
And then having athletes on here too shows that like strength and athleticism are part of beauty now.
Which is definitely different from the past.
Yeah, definitely.
It makes you wonder how these standards are changing. Not just because of traditional media, but also through these online platforms.
Right, like with the Topkins, it's all user generated. So in a way, it's a direct reflection of what at least some people online find appealing.
And that's where it gets really interesting because the comments on the list are sometimes as revealing as the rankings themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, for example, Selena Gomez, one of the comments just says, "Boy, lol, I don't know what this is."
Uh-huh.
It's almost like they accidentally found this list and were like, what is this doing here?
Right, just totally confused.
And then next to Shane Upton, you see comments like, her boobs are on fire and she looks really sexy.
Ugh.
So it's a pretty clear reminder that the internet can be really bad for objectification.
Yeah, it's often expressed in really crude ways too.
Yeah, and it can get dehumanizing really fast.
So I think it's important to acknowledge that this list, even though it's kind of strange and maybe even offensive, it shows something real about our society.
What do you mean?
I mean, we still struggle with objectification and commodifying women's bodies.
And it's even more amplified in the digital age.
Exactly.
Yeah, we can't just ignore this and pretend it's not happening.
No, it's definitely a reflection of something deeper.
And like you said, the comments themselves sometimes show this inner conflict that people have.
Yeah, how so?
Well, like next to JoJo Siwa, who's obviously much younger than many of the women on this list,
Yeah.
someone wrote, "She's a minor. I hated that I had to vote on this just to comment some creepy pedophile put this."
Wow, that's intense.
It is disturbing, but it also shows that even within this community, there's pushback against some of the worst parts of the list.
Yeah, not everyone agrees with
So
it.
it's not like a one-sided thing.
And it makes you think about anonymity online, too.
In what way?
Like, does being anonymous embolden people to say things they wouldn't otherwise, or does it just make existing problems worse?
It's like a distorted reflection of what's going on in society.
Yeah, but to your point, the fact that there are these dissenting voices even in this space means it's not a simple issue.
Exactly. It's complicated.
And that's kind of why we're doing this deep dive, right? To try and figure out all these complexities.
Absolutely. So you mentioned earlier how the list has women with different looks like classic beauty and girl next door charm.
Hmm.
What do you think that says about how beauty standards are changing, especially online?
Well, it's pretty interesting, right? If you think back a few decades, the main beauty standard was way more uniform.
Yeah, like what do you mean?
Like if you think about the old Hollywood stars,
Oh, yeah.
very specific looks and body types were seen as
Ideal? Yeah, like Marilyn Monroe or Audrey Hepburn.
exactly, those were the images that everyone saw as the peak of beauty.
Right.
But this list, even though it's, a little questionable, it shows that those standards are changing.
I guess so.
We're seeing all kinds of looks and body types and ethnicities represented.
So maybe the internet is making people more open to diversity.
Yeah, that's possible. But it also makes you wonder,
What do you mean?
like, is it really appreciation for diversity or is it more about novelty?
Oh, interesting.
Like maybe some of these women are on the list because they're different, not necessarily because they fit traditional ideas of beauty.
That's a good point. It's hard to tell for sure.
And we have to remember that online trends change so fast.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
What's considered attractive today could be totally different tomorrow.
Which brings us back to the whole user-generated thing.
Right.
This list wasn't created by some fashion magazine or anything.
Oh.
It's a direct reflection of what at least some people online find appealing.
Exactly. So we have to be careful about how we consume this kind of content.
You mean like not just taking it at face value?
Right. We need to think about the context, the biases, the bigger picture.
And speaking of bias, it's hard to ignore the fact that this list is specifically about women being fake nude.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem.
It's like saying a woman's value is based on her looks.
And even worse, that it's about how easily she can be digitally manipulated.
For someone else's pleasure, basically.
Right. It raises all these questions about how technology is used to exploit women.
And how those images spread online without any thought for the consequences.
And then you look at the comments, and it often gets even worse.
Yeah, a lot of focus on specific body part.
Imagining these women in compromising situations.
It's creepy, and it just reinforces that objectification.
Anonymity online definitely plays a role in that.
How so?
Well, people might feel more comfortable saying things online that they would never say in person.
Because they're hidden behind a screen name.
Exactly, but then again, we've seen that anonymity can also allow for dissenting voices.
Oh, right, like those comments about the minors on the list?
Yeah, it's complicated.
So the internet is kind of a double-edged sword in that sense.
Definitely. We can't just assume that everyone who interacts with this list has the same intentions.
Some people might be more malicious than others.
But ultimately, it's the potential for harm that we should be most concerned about.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
Evolving beauty standards, user-generated content, objectification, anonymity.
So what do you think the main takeaway is for our listeners?
Why should they care about a list like this?
Because it's not just about this one list, it's about understanding how online trends, even the weird ones, affect our real lives.
They're not just happening in a vacuum.
Right, and we need to be aware of the power dynamics online and how we can be responsible with this kind of content.
Okay, so we've been talking about this top 10 girls to fake nude list.
Yeah.
And how it connects all these bigger issues like beauty standards and how we act online.
Right.
But what does it all mean for, like, the average person, just scrolling through their phone?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Like, what's the real impact of something like this?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that we can't just passively consume everything we see online.
So we need to be more active and, like, question things.
Exactly. Be
Yeah.
critical. Think about the consequences.
Because even though this list might seem harmless to some people, it's actually normalizing objectification.
Yeah, and it contributes to this culture where women are constantly judged on their looks.
And it's not just limited to women either.
That's true.
This whole ranking mentality can affect every part of our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
We start comparing ourselves to others, feeling insecure, chasing after these impossible standards.
It's exhausting and really damaging in the long run,
So we need to be aware of the messages we're absorbing.
both consciously and unconsciously.
Right, like what are these lists rankings algorithms doing to how we see ourselves in the world?
It's a big question.
So how do we break free from all this comparison and objectification?
Well, I think awareness is the first step.
Okay?
Recognize that these online trends, these perfect images, are often trying to manipulate us.
Make us feel bad.
Yeah, make us feel insecure, keep us clicking and scrolling.
So once you realize that's happening,
It's harder to fall into the trap.
it's like seeing behind the curtain.
Exactly. And the more we talk about these problems, the more we challenge them.
And the more we can create space for diverse and authentic representations of beauty.
That's the goal.
So to sum it all up, we've taken a deep dive into a pretty strange part of the internet.
Yeah, we have.
This top 10 girls to fake nude list has shown us a lot about our culture.
Our anxieties, our online behavior,
We've talked about beauty standards, user-generated content, the downsides of anonymity.
and the need to be critical thinkers online.
But in the end, we want you to feel empowered.
You have the power to choose what you consume, what you believe, how you engage with the digital world.
Don't let algorithms tell you what's beautiful or how much you're worth.
Go check out the top 10s, see what's trending, have a laugh.
But keep a critical eye open.
Remember that you are more than just a number on a list.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. What online trends have shaped your own perceptions?
What messages are you amplifying or challenging?
And what kind of digital world do you want to help create?